Hello, let's see if this is working. Right then, on, save, da-da-da-ding. Try this. Hello everyone. Now, I'm not sure what's happened. I'm honestly not sure what's happened. But I'm having an argument with quite a few things at the moment, it seems. To get it working. This one has decided to go. And this one is hopefully going to work. So, I do apologize. But it basically, one decided to die on me and wouldn't restart. Helpful, eh? So, part 2 has come. And part 2 is now working, we hope. So, if I remember correctly, we're up to about here. I'm sorry, I hope I haven't lost anyone in sort of the translations. Sorry about that. I have no idea. XSplit suddenly restarted on me and it wouldn't allow me back into the live. It wouldn't allow me back into the original one, so I'm apologies about this. Do not know why. Ay, caramba. Hello again. And I do apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened there. It's just, it decided to be annoying. Hopefully, when we have the new office set up, we will have everything all perfect and everything will be working okay. Because then it's going to be a new link. It's all going to be linked in hardwire and not go through a door like the current link does. That's good. Blame Microsoft, we all do. I'm going to blame XSplit because XSplit decided to restart on me. So I hope everyone's managed to get here. Thank you, Michael Truitt. Thank you, John Shay. Thank you, Grace Salsky. Baba UK. Thank you. Boris Real. Thank you. Calvin Gersberg. Thank you. Ben Grogan. Thank you. And Shayna. Thank you. And King's Rook. Hello. And Not Wolf. Hello. Hello, everyone. Sorry about this. As said, sorry. I'm not sure why, but it decided to go. I'm going to send new link out to those people who need the new link. Ah. Oh. Right. Let's see. Do. It's a fun day. It is a fun time. I trust the suitable sacrifice to be made to the Blackburn. No, Shane. More a case of I threatened to do something nasty to XSplit. I suppose at a certain point, once I've got through all the expenses of setting up in the office, I am going to have to start paying for the professional version of XSplit, because hopefully that would fix these problems. Anyway, getting back to it. So the British island plan was to take the island however necessary. And that plan pretty much involved one thing. You had to take Basseterre. If you control there, you control the islands, because really that is the major settlement, that's the major harbour, major warehouses, everything is there. As long as you control that, you're fine. And the British have a plan for this. They always have a plan for this, but it's actually quite a clever plan for it. And here are the ground forces. You'll notice the finely dressed gentleman on the far left, well, far right of your screen, to the left of me, when I'm sort of thinking about it, is a colonial marine. And Alexander Cochrane raised hundreds of them, thousands of them. He had first branch were officially wound up in 1810 after he completed all the operations in the Caribbean to conquer the islands. But magically in 1812, when the War of 1812 starts again, they appear, and they start. They're even bigger and more numerous than before, and the same names turn up. And it turns out some of those names have become sergeants from corporals, and some have even got promoted to officer. And you sit there and go, "Yeah, this force went defunct. Like I stopped drinking iron brew." Ron Cash, scary. I started cooking listening to The Good Doctor and turned around to see Nigel Farage trying to sell me shares. I do apologise, that is a scary experience. Kingsroom, well, in the break I made myself a hot dog sandwich. That is now cruel and I'm now hungry. Anyway. The British troops were drawn from the 3rd, 4th, 6th and 8th West Indian Regiments. I.e., the idea was that no particular unit of the garrison force should be so denuded it would become a tempting target for anyone else, but they were going to take them along. 1st Foot, 15th Foot and 19th Foot, 25th Foot and 63rd Foot, 90th Foot, and the Royal York Rangers. So basically, these are the locals who've been raised and who don't look too dissimilar to the Colonial Marines. And then you have, these are the regulars, broadly speaking, from Britain. Officially garrison, artillery and militia forces, which may include some colonial marines. Cochrane had started these as a way to officially garrison islands. The colonial marines got a very good name in the Royal Navy, and there was a strong argument made that when the Royal Marines were really sort of standardized and professionalized post the Napoleonic Wars, that actually the colonial marines should be made a part of them, and that it would be as where you had brigades of marines, which they were looking at establishing at this point. They end up not going for it because they end up deciding to go back as cheap as possible. But the idea was you would have 3 battalions, squadrons, whatever you want to call them, of Royal Marines and a squadron of Colonial Marines in every single Marine brigade, with the Colonial Marines being recruited from the colonies. and basically serving a similar purpose as the French Foreign Legion. It's a pretty good idea, a cool idea. Roland Cash, Colonial Marines on the way to Guadeloupe. I got a bad feeling about this drop. No, they wouldn't have had a bad feeling. They were. Look at this. You have got nigh on 7,000 British forces versus, if they were all there, 4,000 French troops who are mostly militia or from the 66 E Regiment, but who are suffering from malnutrition and an epidemic. And morale is non-existent, so it's not fun for them. It's not fun to be the French on this side of this battle. Now, first of all, the first of the class of the ships I have to talk about, it's a Temeraire class. Now, why am I talking about the Temeraire class ship of the line? Well, because this most important class of ships, which were built by the French to serve the French, would provide 2/3 of the Royal Navy's ships of the line officially at this battle. 107 were built for the French, although some of those were completed for the Dutch, and 25 were captured by the British. It is the most numerous service group of capital ships ever built. They are 1,900 tons, theoretically. 55.87 meters long. 14.9 meters wide. Have a draft of 7.26 meters. And apparently, the propulsion, when I found this in the little book I was reading it from, have 2,485 meters squared of sails for their propulsion. And I found that pretty cool. I also found it slightly funny. And a complement of 700 personnel. Right, their armament is also quite interesting. So these were supposed to be some of the best balanced ships built. 28 36-pounder. 30 18-pounders. Although some were fitted with 24-pounders, 18-pounders, on the upper deck. Forecastle and stern castle, 16 8-pounders and 4 36-pounder carronades. That's a weight of shots. These are very good ships, and this is the backbone of the French Napoleonic fleet. The Temeraire class are critical. One of the other things I'd like to say is, here's the thing. The French keep losing. Okay? They have these beautifully designed ships which keep being nicked by the British and then used by the British. The British even build some ships based on their designs, which they use them. But the British never build as many ships of a class as the French do. Yet the French are often held up as being the more innovative designers and the more scientific and perfect. My point is this. Is it really good science to keep sticking with churning out the same class if it's not winning you the battles? Nick Waters. So I'd like to buy some 74s, please, and that's what you get, pretty much. That's good. Duly collected by the Royal Navy when the Spanish and British were fighting the French. Well, you know, most of them were. So Scottish Brigade and the Yorkshire Brigade, both full of Irishmen. Not actually. Quite a lot of them were full of Yorkshiremen as well. Consider French fleet are apparently bigger than English fleet. I don't want to get into the fight of this one at a time. Guess that's, well, it was bidding battle sort of British. Yes, but that was British. And honestly, again, here is the thing. We talk about all these things when we talk about the ship design, and people go, it's mathematically, it's beautiful. Everyone agrees that the British sailing ropes were actually in the rigging was a more advanced technique than the French because it allowed the British to sail with a lot less crew. I.e., the average British crew were about 600 for this ship, whereas the French was 700. Now, if you're reducing consumption by 100 people, you can get a lot more range and a lot more operational capability out of the ship. Because you've still got the same amount of space for supplies and fuel. Well, not fuel, but food, which is your fuel on a sailing ship. Shromac, to be fair, I don't think it was the ship's fault more than the crew and leadership. Well, my advice would be build the ships which are better suited to your crew and leadership styles. Agent, there must be reasonable ships if we keep winning on them. Yeah. But again, you're ordering 120, you're building 107 of the same design. Jermac, any economy of scale? Any information about the Napoleonic Navy procurement system? Maybe some corruption and good friends were involved? Many of those things. Jason, were the Royal York Rangers from Yorkshire or Upper Canada, or what was a Canadian junior hockey team doing there for some reason? Doctor Who episode. The Royal York Rangers were, I think, in this case, were actually from Yorkshire. So, first ship we have there, HMS Pompei. Now, HMS Pompei was actually Cochrane's flagship. HMS Pompei is one of the Temeraire class. Actually, there are ships built off her, and that's what the drawing is. The drawing is of the ship, the Superb, etc., which was designed based on her lines. And Pompey got to Britain because after the siege of Toulon ended, Captain Poulain decided that it was better to be in Britain than in France. So she was taken without a fight completely. And French service, she had a lower gun deck of 28 36-pounder long guns and 30 18-pounder long guns. And a forecastle and quarter deck, each with 16 8-pounders and 4 36-pounders. And you notice the word obuser is used there instead of carronade. British service. Lower deck, 30 32-pounder guns. Upper deck, 30 18-pounder guns. Quarter deck, 12 13-pounder guns. 32-pounder gun, carronades. Forecastle, 4 32-pounder carronades. Roundhouse, 8 18-pounder carronades. They are roughly 72, 74 for a third-rate vessel. Tons Burthen, 1,901 and 8/94. Length 182 feet. Beam 49 feet. Depth of hold 21 feet. 10.5 inches. Full rig ship and a complement of 640. It's amazing. Just changing to being British meant she had her crew reduced by 600. This was his flagship. It was Pompei. It was cute. Captain Pompei, named after the fortress Roman place or Portsmouth. Well, it kept the same name it had when it was French, so I presume it's the Roman place. Jeff Beeler, Royal York Rangers from Yorkshire makes sense given all the Yorkshire units. Perhaps it was a temporary combined light companies unit? From what I understand, is they were using rifles, so I'm wondering if it was a rifle unit. That would make sense, technically. I know Cochrane had managed to get them out there by hook or by crook. Him and Beckwith had basically teamed up on the War Office to get at least one what they were calling a crack regiment, and then they promptly used the supplies from them to train not only that crack regiment but the Colonial Marines, and they'd been training all the troops up. Tom Godding, Royal York Rangers were a German rifle unit raised for West Indies in the 1790s, I believe. I thought they were the sort of, well, could have been a German rifle unit. 90th was a Scottish rifle unit. Tom Golding, I think they were one of the mercenary regiments that had originally had lots of French officers. Possibly. But all I know is that the officers who are in command, who are written about, are actually Yorkshiremen. So this is why I'm presuming they were actually Yorkshiremen. But it could be a German unit which has Yorkshire officers. I honestly, I am keeping as far... If you want Napoleonic era regimental history, I recommend going to Zach White. He knows it far better than me, which is why I'm avoiding it. And we also have HMS Abercrombie, which was another of the Temeraires, which was actually captured because she was part of those resupply routes which were going to resupply Martinique. And yeah, she was captured by Cochrane. She was run down. HMS Recruit, this little brig, keeps after her very close and manages to cripple her sails. And then Pompei, which is her sister ship, closes in, boards, and captures her. And she had been the flagship for Commodore Annibal Trude's mission to bring supplies to Martinique. And when they arrived, they found that Martinique had already been taken. She became HMS Abercrombie. She never got back to Britain before she was named. This happens in February 1809. So, in April 1809. In February 1809, she set out. In April 1809, that's what happens. And then by February 1810, she is one of the principal ships taking part in the British invasion of Guadeloupe. Thank you, France! We needed some more ships. It's just, there are so many islands. For Cochrane, he's got to garrison and protect the Danish islands that he's taken, all the other islands he's taken. He's got to support the Portuguese, the Spanish. He's short of ships. It's so good to know that he has an understanding head of state back in Europe. Admittedly, it's the French one rather than the British, but that doesn't matter. The ships help. Thank you. I would have loved her to have had a sister ship named HMS Finch, King's Rook. Shomak, really funny how supplies fall off the back of a truck even when trucks aren't invented yet. Yeah, it's like one of the great questions that is sent out is, Admiral Cochrane, it has come to our attention that you have raised a force of colonial marines which apparently is many battalions strong. We have 3 questions. 1, how are you paying for this? 2, where did you get the weapons from? And 3, exactly who have you employed and how many are there? The actual letter is far more flowery language and longer than that, but that was the basic gist of it. Basically, we have an admiral in the Caribbean. He's raised an army. Oh. Where do we now rule? And Cash, aren't we just doing some high-class RN trolling, sending all their captured vessels? Occasionally. That guy named him. Seems like I about a losing track during the time during the live streams. The Elios always have to leave out work, just like today again. Take care. Jeff Beeler. Beckworth remained in the Caribbean until he retired in 1814 from ill health. Imagine anyone getting sick while living in the Caribbean back then. Lots of them. Tom Gordon. Sorry, looked it up. Royal York raised in the West Indies from local inhabitants. Again, they have Yorkshire officers, though. Perhaps some Yorkshiremen have got there. History of apologies for getting that wrong. Just looked up in Death Before Glory. History of British raising ranger units from slaves is very interesting, actually. Yes, we do a lot of it. Showing, was there a captured French ship that was renamed HMS Paris? I don't think so. Dirt Squad. I wonder if they were asking so if Cochrane decided to declare independence, they'd know just how much of the previously French Navy they'd have to send to deal with the problem. Potentially. No, they're fairly sure Cochrane wasn't going to go for independence. He was quite happy. He was very British. They were slightly worried that they might find they've got the 13 colonies back or something, because he was raising quite a large army. And this is another thing which happens when these same units start to turn up, and a lot of these people turn up when he's fighting the Americans, and the Americans are going, where have they got these, excuse me, again, you've said Cochrane, again, can we please have a small memorandum on this? Can you explain why you have sent this? He's come with that, and we're not sure where he got that from, and also, can you please tell him to stop bringing 32-pounder cannon ashore? And we're fairly sure quite a lot of what he's doing is against the Articles of War. His claim that he just hasn't even read or heard of what the Articles of War are is not reassuring us in any way, shape, or forms. To be honest, the American reaction to Cochrane being given command, if you were going for a meme, and I don't like using this because it's of course the name of my sister as well, is the sort of all the Karen memes. Basically, anything you can imagine that sort of meme and that idea going and saying is what the Americans were doing when they heard Cochrane was in charge. Consider Cochrane's like to cheat. It's not cheating if you win. All is fair in love and war. Then we have the Repulse class, which are actually British built. Hey, the actual British ships. These are very rare in the Royal Navy. These are actually built by Britain and serve Britain. So you have one of these evolved, the Repulse class. Here's what they theoretically are. There's 11 of them built. 74 gun third rates, 28 32-pounders. Upper gun deck, 28 18-pounders. Quarter deck, 14 9-pounders. Forecastle, 4 9-pounders. It's quite a good force. So it's a good thing. It's a fairly capable sort of little group. And technically, that is the 3 74s involved when we got to HMS Scepter. However, again, full rigged, lovely ship. This is the plans for HMS Scepter, which is the third one. However, several of the accounts, in fact, one of the best accounts we have available, comes from sailors, or at least one sailor, who was aboard HMS Alfred. which had been built in 1778, so I must admit was by this point 30-odd years old. 32 years old at this point. So it's quite old. Includes HMS Alexandra, and HMS Warrior, and HMS Montague in the class, but HMS Alfred is herself who I'm talking about, who are writing accounts of this and what's going on. Now, one of the arguments put forward is that her attendance is she's armed on flute, like some frigates were at this point, where they had all or some of their guns missing in order to make space for moving troops. Honestly, that could, of course, be it. That could be it. She could be an unarmed one. But again, you go back to Cochrane. Cochrane didn't like making third rates on flute. He didn't like doing it with frigates. He liked using merchant ships. He was very, very committed to not using warships as warships. However, he also had a habit of occasionally claiming that certain ships were transports to the Admiralty, and when discussing them, or various levels of unarmament, so that he could keep them around and they wouldn't say you have more warships than you actually do have, or that you actually need. So my guessing is she's there, and my guessing is that technically he could classify her as on flute if she's lost some of her 9-pounder guns and maybe even some of her 18-pounder guns. But probably just the 9-pounder guns have gone. And then he could put some troops, extra marines aboard her, and call her as armed on flute as a transport. So I wouldn't, and I think there's at least one. There could be as many as at least 3 more third rates with him who are there who could do that. Because again, some of the accounts suggest that those ships get involved in the bombardment, and if you're bombarding somewhere with less than your 32-pounders and your 18-pounder guns, you're not really doing much, so I'm reckoning they have at least those on them. Dan, so about 20 years young in the military. Yes, so seems kind of a young ship to be written off. Delp Squad, the American general hears Cochrane is his opponent. 2 things, Colonel. Please order the men to ensure they have a white handkerchief each, and please bring me my brown trousers. Ryan Cash, what you can't do a few 74s just isn't worth doing. Well, you know, it's all you really need out there. Financial intelligence. IDC in Israel is offering a counter-terrorism masters. Might be interesting to someone here. Can't afford. Not affiliated with them. I'm glad you're not affiliated with them, but I'd also say that you can get a good masters on a similar subject from King's College War Studies Department, so both of them are good schools, though. Shomac, I looked it up. There was actually an HMS Ville de Paris that was built by the RN after they captured a French ship named Ville de Paris, but it sunk on its way to England. Aww. That's sad. Peter Dawson. Yes, it's called a tank, but is it? I think that's about the S tank from Sweden. That's good. Cochrane. She's to transport. Admiralty. What exactly is she transporting? Mostly shot and powder. Admiralty. Yeah, that works for them. That works for him. What can I say? He is a very, very good admiral. He's also not the kind of admiral anyone else wants to be fighting. It's one of the things is Alexander Cochrane reminds me of me and Drac, and to an extent, yeah, Jamie as well. I think all 3 of us would do this. In by hook or by crook, we would find a way to make sure we had enough warships to do what we needed to do and enough transports. And what they honestly were officially called in the books, you won't know. You know, he is very good at that. Getting intermittent circuits of doom. I'm not sure what's going on. Good news is my new office should be set up on Tuesday. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do a live. There isn't a live Tuesday. It's long patrol on Tuesday. So the long patrol on Tuesday been affected. So maybe next Thursday's live will be the first live from the office using the system there, and if that works, and maybe I'll even have the computer set up there. The Cajun. So he is the guy that Henderson got inspiration from him then. Pretty much. A few levels separate down, but that's some. Jeff Hill, the Corps of Colonial Marines was paid for by from Marie Grant revenues, clothed from RN stores, and commanded by Royal Marine officers. 70 on ships, 20 to 30 in Sainsbury, and 50 on Marie Galante. Well, that's some of the official ones. Alright, so here it is, the battle. The attack on Guadeloupe. And it's rather an interesting battle. They get ashore. They arrive off Le Glacier in the evening and land the small division there and the large division at Saint Marie under the command of Hislop. The division is then split, with the larger one marching towards Basse-Terre and the smaller one marching north. Neither meet serious opposition. Militia forces desert in front of them and abandon their fortifications as the British approach, or the British just walk round the fortifications. Messages are sent to by the approaching British troops and ships to the towns and forts, offering them a chance to surrender. And within 2 days, they are pretty much getting to where they want to be. They've landed on the 27th of January. On the 30th of January, Enough took up a position with his remaining garrison in Beaupré St. Louis. Beaupré St. Louis on the Ridge Highlands that guarded the approaches to Basse-Terre. Hislop formed his men up in front of Ernest's position, and Harkar's men then come ashore. They are moved round by the fleet north of Basse-Terre, outflanking the strongest French positions on the Trois Rivers and forcing their withdrawal to Basse-Terre itself. With Basse-Terre coming under bombardment from gun batteries set up by RN sailors, which have been organised into naval brigades, Ernest marches out to meet the British on the plain at Mataba on the 3rd of February. Ernest attacks the British and initially manages to drive them back, before superior numbers force him to retire after he is outflanked by Welles's force attacking from the north. General Wells is wounded in the attack, and his men suffer 40 casualties, but they get through. And during this point, there is an account which suggests that Beckwith spotted a large mine and the French attempt to use it as a trap in order to try and blow up the British troops, and managed to refuse to be drawn into it and keeps his troops out of it. However, whilst it's all going on, and this is one of the reasons why I think Ernest managed his early successes, because while Ernest is retreating, Commodore Fahy seizes the opportunity and lands a force of Royal Marines and presumably Colonial Marines into Basse-Terre, taking it and taking the capital. So while he's been out fighting the British to try and drive them off, the Royal Navy, trying to fight the British Army up there, fighting away, the Royal Marines and Royal Navies take the capital city from behind him. Schumacher. HMS Philip Perry was a 110 gunship of the line. She was launched in 1795 and broken up in 1845. Collingwood was aboard her when he died of cancer. Ooh. Well, you know, at least he got to see Paris. That was a very bad joke, I do admit. No, Collingwood was always trying to get a holiday. He was worked to death, the poor... It's a rather fun battle. And as you can see, they get a lot done. But again, it is the classic thing that you are fighting the British ashore, you are fighting this battle against Beckworth and his troops, and this is the lovely, by the way, that's the lovely image drawn of General Beckworth on the 3rd of February, commanding his troops from the sort of little hillock and basically shouting out orders. He gets really involved in the fighting. Let's see, how old was he at this time? I'm trying to remember. He must have been, well, he dies 13 years later at the age of 70. So 57, which is quite old for the time. And he does well. He's facing people probably half to a third his age in armed combat with swords against muskets and rifles with bayonets, and he's winning. But also, it is a classic lesson for amphibious warfare, in that your key thing is to defend the town and defend the island. Once the troops have landed and they outnumber you, you're in trouble. When they're advancing on you, you're in real trouble. And if they manage to draw you out from the very thing you have to defend, you are in overwhelmed trouble. And this is the thing, Enough is just overwhelmed. He cannot deal with the level of force the British are bringing. This is actually another map of the attack and of the battle, so you can actually see what the British were doing. You can see the fact that the British were keeping as close as they can to the coast as they come down, and that's so that the Navy can support them. And of course, you have Basse-Terre on this down here. So you have the French lines of defences, and where the French are trying to defend themselves, and the British getting closer and closer and closer. And as said, it's all basically concluded when the Royal Navy and the Royal Marines go, "Hello, Basse-Terre! You're ours now!" And Basse-Terre is going, "But we had the French army in here a few minutes ago." "Ah, yes, but they're off fighting the British army up there. You now belong to us. Show us to your rum." Scott, whilst they're half his age, if most are from a militia, he's a professional soldier fighting someone who may well have first had a sword or musket and bayonet a couple of days ago. He seems to be mostly fighting against the 66th Regiment. That is certainly seems to be what he's coming up against. He does pitch himself at the strongest section of the French line, and that's where he holds. Dan British turn up to Guadeloupe and say, "Hello, I have heard of you. Have you heard of our biplane savior, the Black Whale?" Oh, this might be why sort of the YouTube keeps freezing me out, because they're worried I'm starting a real religion. If you start praying to it, I'm going to get really, on a regular basis, I'm going to get really worried. Oh, caramba. It's when the hymn book of the Blackburn comes out, that's when I'm going to start worrying. This is one of those campaigns which really more should be looked at. And it's a whole sort of scenario which should be more looked at. The West Indies campaign is a forgotten part of the Napoleonic Wars, and which is really a problem because it's a very successful part of it, and in many ways, it's a model for how you fight a war against the peer or near-peer power. If you're fighting a global war, you pick off their allies and territories before you go for them, especially if you can immobilize them. This is, I often point out, the problem for China. And that China's great. China's a very powerful nation, but China's dependent upon resources coming from elsewhere in the world. And you have to figure out how they're going to secure those lines. Carl, funny enough, Dr. Clark, I believe that's in the pipeline. Okay. Just give Bitcher a week, King's Rook. That's worrying me. I'd be worried if we start when we start having councils decide what the correct tenets of worship are. Oh, I'm so hoping Drac and Jamie aren't watching this. They will start organising those councils. So, Lauren Hatch, so right, Doctor. I have read a lot of Napoleonic Wars and never even heard of this. Barely heard about the West Indies campaign. I know, and it's here's the thing: the amount of stuff for amphibious warfare you think we teach today and go, oh, this is a really modern technique. Without radio, without any form of massive communication, you have British Army pinning down the French Army while the Royal Marines and Royal Navy goes in and takes the city from behind them. If that is not managing to operate with one spirit, if not necessarily one mind or one contiguous command structure, I cannot say what is. But also, here's another advantage. If you're managing to operate with one spirit in that way, and you're managing to work that well, and I know the modern world is is often said to be more complicated and faster and all these things, and I do agree there is a large argument to be made there. But what you're also saying, what is also going is that imagine if we could get forces to work together that well, without needing to do so much communication, that they understood each other well enough, they could do this without communicating. There is no way an enemy can crack communications which don't exist. There is no way you can monitor traffic which isn't sent. There is no way you can analyze what someone's going to do if there is no data produced in the first place. What is the first warning the French get of the British deciding to come into Badastere? It's when the boats pull in and the troops come off them. Also going, you've arrived. We have. Oh, and by the way, that's our fire support sitting offshore. Hello! We have at least 220 cannon, but there are about 6 of us which look like third rates, so we might have a lot more. No one's quite sure. It could be as much as, 720 guns out here. It's just fun. And remember, half of them will be pointing at a time, so yes, that's only really 360, but that's still a lot of firepower, isn't it? Yeah. Hello. Cajun, are you going to be on next Armchair Admirals stream? Yes, I am. I think I've been invited to be a regular, as I understood it, on the last live stream, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. And we are very hopeful Jamie's going to join us from Matapan. The Blackburn improves of armoured flight decks on carriers and Drax fondness for flamethrowers. Oh, good lord. Calvin Gosman. In shore bombing, what's the effective range of 32 pounders or 18 pounders for matter? You're probably talking about a mile. A bit, maybe a bit more than a mile. They'd only be a few hundred yards offshore. Runcash, fighting coordinated amphibious campaign in tropical mountainous territory against a dug-in enemy with two different branches of the military, and it seems pretty flawless. Yeah. It's Shomak, it's 200 guns for bureaucratic purposes. You wouldn't believe the amount of paperwork that we'd have to do if we were honest about what we had. That would be the case. That's half the problem, I think, for the Americans when fighting Cochrane when he gets put in charge of the 1812 war. Is a case of, what are we exactly fighting? Not even the British are quite sure what Admiral Cochrane is bringing for this fight. How are we supposed to know? Lots. Basically becomes the troll counting system from Terry Pratchett's, Discworld series. Many, 1, 2, 3, many, lots. Derp Squad. The armchair Admiral stream, a new flock to introduce to the holy black man. Oh, Lord. Dan Freeman. Cochrane had more and heavier artillery than Napoleon had at Waterloo. Yes. But Napoleon is the one remembered as the artillery general. To be honest, and this is something I'm going to mention today, land armies of today still have very small amounts of artillery in comparison to their navies. If you consider, I think the characterization was with rate of fire and weight of shell, the deck guns of the Royal Navy are each equivalent to about half a battery of guns of the artillery. And then you work out the Royal Navy has roughly 19 deck guns. So that is equivalent to roughly 9.5 batteries of field artillery, plus Tomahawk land attack missiles on their submarines, plus harpoons which can do land attack, plus F-35s which can do land attack, and aircraft carriers, plus, well, you get the point. And that's mainly because hitting something which is moving like a ship is moving in a world where the ship's moving is quite difficult. Hitting something on land, well, if I've got an enemy force advancing towards me, if they want to move quickly, they're going to try and move on flatter ground, because rough ground, it doesn't matter. Rough, hilly terrain, doesn't matter how good your equipment is, it's going to slow you down compared to flat ground. So they're going to want to move on the flatter ground. If there are any rivers or things which have bridges, natural choke points, I know where they're going to go. So I can start predicting, and I can concentrate my fire, and I can ready my positions, and when they turn up in one, I can call in pre-dialed coordinates, and boom, boom, boom. If I get it all right, of course. At sea, they can move in any direction they want. It's blowing annoying. Then, boom. This is why the RN needs to be about using about 2 twin turrets with 4.55-inch guns per ship in something cheap enough to put close enough shore for naval gunfires aboard. Oh, that would be good. Perhaps that's an option for a Type 32. Peter Dawson. Also, Germans stopped their tanks outside Dunkirk. The fact that RN destroyers are used to shooting at 30 plus mile per hour targets might have been a factor. Yes, and they're nasty. That's good. As Drac put it, on land, if the area you've got to you've put your guns starts moving, you've got much bigger problems than aiming your guns. Yeah. So, the consequences of this. Well, interesting enough, there's a big impact on the slave trade because the big movers of the slave trade transatlantic at this point that were still involved with it were the French, were still trying to do it. You lose Guadeloupe, you lose the last place where those French traders can change their ships and change things over to smaller ships. So it actually has a big impact on that. And remember, Cochrane is very, very anti-slavery. Now, there are many options for why he's anti-slavery. He could be an enlightened individual. I think possibly that's partial. But also, I think one of the reasons he's very anti-slavery is because the more anti-slavery he is, the more he frees slaves, the more troops he has for his West Indian and colonial marines. So it's a very pragmatic, these people will like me if I free them, and they'll go and fight the other people who were keeping them as slaves. Economic impact? Well, for France, it has a huge impact. Again, it cuts off one of their richest colonies, one of their best colonies for trading across the world. And also, Guadeloupe was a good springboard. Martinique was a good springboard. The Caribbean was a good springboard to other potential markets. You lose it in the age of sail, you don't get it back. Impact on the wider war. Well, the British have secured the Caribbean. That's useful for Britain. They've got a lot of money coming in. Remember, any money coming that's taken from the French, any supplies and any things which are taken from the French, so Britain has secured this area, is money which is going to the British economy, which makes the British economy stronger. Anything which makes the British economy stronger allows them to do more work with finance and allows the Bank of England more freedom. Anything which allows the Bank of England more freedom allows them to give more money to the Navy to build more ships or to commission more captured French ships, and allows them to give more money to support the Prussians and the Austrians and the other people who are actually doing the fighting. That's good. You say you don't get it back. By 1814, the French had Guadeloupe back in the Treaty of Paris. Yes and no. They get it back, but they don't get it back in the same way they've had it before. The British are now taking off them. The British have freed the slaves on Guadeloupe. The British have done a lot of things to end the slave trade, and it causes a lot of problems for France in terms of putting it back to what it once was as far as their economy is concerned. And remember again, what France gets back in 1814 is by far the less viable colonies. They get back enough colonies because Britain doesn't want to make the French royalists look too weak, and France to go down despotism again. They have to. It's annoying. They have to deal with it, but they also don't give them back stuff which would have made them a lot richer. So they cut them off for quite a long time. Jack, may remind in case of economy that Napoleonic era and continental blockade started production of sugar from beets. With Caribbean under control, Britain would control world supply of sugar, which helped because, let's be honest, sugar is one of the most important ingredients in iron brew. And rum. And various other things which Britain was very, very interested in. It also allowed them to control the importation of chocolate to Europe. I think at one point, because they could control, because all the Coca-Cola beans, because of the issues Spain was having and Portugal were having with Napoleon, it was mostly coming on British ships. Everyone thinks Britain went around the world wanting to take over places. No. The empire was largely an exercise in finding new and interesting things to eat. That is Britain. We follow our stomachs. When the Germans had short barrel 75 or long barrel, not even the long 50mm at Dunkirk. Yes, and the destroyers had 4.7, 4.5-inch guns at a time when 3-inch guns were considered massive tanks. I think that's going on about Dunkirk and the tank options, and let's be honest, you have the destroyers coming in, but also you have the other real threat. We don't talk about it much, but the RAF are doing a fairly decent job of putting up an air blockade over Dunkirk. Yes, some Stukas get through. Yes, some fighters get through. Yes, some aircraft get through. But a lot don't. And this has an impact because they realise they'll be fighting under a disputed sky against ships which will suddenly have targets which are very much in their ballywhack. And they have big guns and they can cause a lot of damage. That's got new interesting things to eat and new interesting people to tax. Yes. And also, this is, I always think, the biggest argument which wins over so many of the British government, British political classes to the idea of ending slavery. You can't tax slaves. But you can tax free people. Well, hey! Let's free all the slaves. We can tax them. Then one has to protect trade centres, and then whoops, you've accidentally conquered a continent or three. India, Africa, Australia, North America. Well, you know. It works. And this is another lovely painting of Alexander Cochrane. In his role as governor of Guadeloupe. Yeah. Basically, the British response to all his stuff is to just keep giving him things which give him lots of interesting jobs and lots of money to spend on various things because they work out very quickly. He doesn't spend the money being corrupt himself. No. You're more likely to find him spending the money on, I don't know, recruiting an entire force of colonial marines or turning the West Indies regiments into something which resembles a small, I'm not sure, landing force from the Armada. Should the Navy have a ship called HMS Gurkha? Yes. They've had a couple over the years. They're good. Shomak, to be fair, if I had to eat British cuisine, I would start a world empire to get literally anything else. British cuisine is actually not bad. It gets a bad rap, but it's actually not bad. One of the reasons often worked out is that the reason the British and the French tend to develop far more in the way of sauces, etc., and things is because their stuff they tend to have more trouble getting good quality meat and veg. Whereas Britain tends to have enough good quality meat and veg in its history to go around. Tends to. That's good. And occasionally the government gets left holding the hot potato of a failed trading company. Well, these things happen. Or in the case of the East India Company, not so much a failed trading company as we're going to stop them and keep taking over fricking countries. They're annoying us. I always think it's not so much the bad treatment and problems they're causing in India which cause it. It's the fact that they're starting on China and everyone's worried that they're going to end up with another empire. That'd be an interesting thing. Yes, imagine history where the East India Company it does a slightly better job running India and manages to take over China. The British government's response to that one. Oh, great. Does what? He spends the money he got in interesting methods to ensure the colonial regiment of foot actually deserve the name? Yes. Lucas Shans, excuse me, Your Majesty, we just conquered a continent by accident. It happens. Come on, they are making us look bad at making empires. It's like, if there's any part of Britain which is actually setting out to try and make an empire, it's the East India Company. And even then, they're not actually trying to make an empire because they want to rule places. They just want to make money. And they just end up going, right then, we're going in trade. Oh, frick, the local governors are all corrupt and we can't... Okay, we'll talk to the decent local governors and see if they want our help to deal with the bad local governors. Okay, da-da-da-da-da. And then, okay, we've got bandits, these we can't rely on local forces. Okay, we have to have our own troops. All right, we have our own troops now. We have an army. This person's causing trouble. Okay, what do we have? We don't need to hire the locals. We've got our own army. Okay, our own army will go deal them. And we've ended up in control. Good lord. Dan Freeman, British government. No, East India Company, put China down carefully. East India, but pretty, shiny, and we're getting bored of India. It's quite possible. It's one of the interesting periods of history in that I don't think it's sometimes not studied from the perspective of don't presume how are they actually doing this? Why are they actually doing this? Ron Cash, to be fair, it was worrying easy to take over China. Most losses were from disease. Yeah. That's good. So unfortunately for the East India Company, ruling a country is a very bad business plan if your end goal is making money. True. Comment, maps used for the open war made by someone who lived in Tembe. That honestly doesn't surprise me. So, what have we got coming up in February? So, as we all know, the Patron's Choice winners were the Royal Navy Strategic Role in the 1980s NATO, as suggested by Joseph Sutherland, and fast attack craft, i.e. torpedo, U, and gunboats in World War I Adriatic, Kleinkrieg, and coastal warfare, as suggested by Carl Casberg. Now, you will notice when I date these that I have chucked them all towards the end of the month, because I hope to be in my new office. I hope it to have heating by that point. It might well not have all the shelving put up, but I hope it to be viable so I can be in there and where I'll have better internet and I'll hopefully have my PC up and running. Kingsrook, would you prefer EIC or HBC? Ooh, Hudson Bay Company are fun, but honestly, the only problem with the Hudson Bay Company was at one point they were probably considering taking over Alaska to get beating up the Russians. That's the main problem. The Hudson Bay Company, and possibly there was a half a chance they might have ended up running Canada at one point. Go on, Cash. Fully digitalized background in the new office? No. No. But hopefully a PC so that I don't keep running this poor laptop into the ground. So, now, while I've got... I have to admit, I'm slightly speeding through some of these because while it's running happily, and I'm not sure what's causing the internet to be as problematic as it is tonight, I am making sure I'm getting the key announcements done. So, lives we've got. Well, on the 11th of February, that's next Thursday, we have the Battle of Dogger Bank. Or rather, the Battles of Dogger Bank. 1896 to 1916, looking at all of them. On the 18th, we have the Royal Navy strategic role in 1980s NATO. And on the 25th, we have fast attack craft, i.e. U-boat, torpedo U-boats and gunboats in World War I Adriatic, clanking in coastal warfare. Suggested by Carl von Gasberg. Carmen, British companies in the 18th and 19th century, all we do is take control of countries. What went wrong? We started off trying to observe them, and we got fed up with them being badly organised. And if they're so badly organised, even the British companies want to take over, you know there's something going wrong there. Dan Freeman, East India Company accidentally looks a bit north, invades Russia, and ends up fighting the Hudson Bay Company over control of Alaska. That could actually have happened. Gross Sassy, we have 1,000 varieties of exotic food. EIC, HBC. We have seal blubber. EIC wins by default. Again, don't doubt out the Hudson Bay Company, because seal blubber is a very, very valuable commodity. Those were not naval love stories on the 14th. No. It's some more transactions of the Institute of Naval Architects. And I do realise that's Valentine's Day, but I didn't feel like doing love stories, and because unfortunately this year I'll be waving at my girlfriend over video phone, rather than as we did last year, which was go round HMS Belfast. That was fun. There aren't many girlfriends in this world who are that good and lovely that they would suggest going around HMS Belfast for Valentine's Day. Carmen, British government and Royal Navy and then have to intervene. Now, guys, play nice. You meant to both fight France, like all good British companies of you. Well, they probably would be fighting France by that point, because if they are in Russia at that point, they might have got to Russia at roughly the same time as Napoleon's in Russia, so they could end up fighting France for control of Russia and each other. You're a lucky man. Yes, I am. Okay, Brew ships. We have international relations on Sunday. This Sunday. Then we have some more transactions in Institute of Naval Architects, and then we have amphibious operations and equipment on the 38th, and then I'm not sure what we're going to have on 28th. I'm still deciding. It's going to depend on what books come out, really, honestly. Long patrol from the boxes. Long patrols. We have naval support for the Western Front. I'm not sure what's Western Front. Western Front, 1914 to 18. 16th is Battles of Dogger Bank, and 23rd is the Royal Navy strategic role in 1980s NATO. Now, the reason I've done that is, again, because I've been practical with the fact I've got moving into the office, and when I'm going to probably be moving into the office, so I thought, right, if I only have to write, if I can cut down the number of PowerPoints I have to prepare and do research for, I will be more guaranteed able to deliver the same good quality I like to deliver. I wanted to make sure I was still delivering quality, even if not quite as many new topics. Carl, but there are best friends who will travel from Norway to go to Tankfest when they don't like tanks. Carl, don't take this the wrong way, but that sounds like a lot more than a best friend. Carl Gasway, there's a Plagueis vessel. We took back Crimea. You have to get back Alaska. So that's good. Oh, Bruce 36 will be interesting. About half my degree was directly or indirectly in international relations. Yeah, it will be fun. It's I'm getting the books out on ambassadors I have and all those sort of things. Carmen, now, Doctor, she's got a boyfriend. Yeah. But, Carl, is it the guy? Is that the boy she wants to be her boyfriend? That's the question. Right. So, that is the topics. And see, it's been a rather fun thing to discussion. I have to admit, I've been waiting for a while to be able to put BM in this and talk about it. Runcash, can't wait for a post-lockdown Tankfest. Yes, I'm thinking actually this time, if I'm at if I go to Tankfest, I'm probably going to have to make sure I actually tell me and Drac both know we're at Tankfest, so we can say hi to each other. And also, I want to track down the chieftain and and ask him some questions about amphibious tanks and see what his opinion is on them. God bless our wives and sweethearts, and may they never meet. Yes, that was one of the traditional Royal Navy toasts, wasn't it, for years? And again, the background global to the Napoleonic Wars. It's interesting what happens. It's also interesting when you realise that actually Spain controls more of America than the United States does at that point. And there's actually borders between Mexico and Canada. Dan Trim, you can carpool with Drac to get down to Tankfest. We could do if it's post-lockdown. I'm not sure which car we'd take, though, because which would be better for parking on grass? Ryan Cash, would be amazing to meet everyone in life, though. It would be. It'd be cool to say hi to you all. I'm looking forward to that. Basically, when I can do some public lectures again, which I always enjoy doing for Kings and various other places, I'm going to be so happy about it. The squad, that's getting a bit too much. Okay, modern borders between Canada and Mexico would help with NAFTA. Constitutional residence. Spanish control over land north of Rio Grande wasn't exactly strong. No, it wasn't exactly really there, but they claimed it on the map. Calahedron, are there any events in Chatham? Sometimes. Dan Freeman, Clark, you had best drive so others can drink things other than I am brew. People want to drink things other than I am brew? But also, okay, while I'm getting into this, I want to add some things on it this is one of those campaigns which is one of those first, I would argue, really modern campaigns, in that you have it not just Britain fighting for itself. It is really sort of an integrated campaign where it's helping Spain, it's helping Portugal, it's taking out the Danish West Indies because they might succor the French. So it's really sort of doing a kind of modern campaign. It's very World War II precedent setting. Tom Godding, imagine if the British had taken New Orleans in 1762 free. It could have been interesting. Gahaman, I need a tip on how do I get my friend to let me pay for Tankfest. They won't let me when they're paying £300 to go before buying a ticket. Okay. And this is probably going to get me into trouble with someone on here, but my advice sometimes in this circumstances, especially if you've got a friend who's already spending that much to come with you, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Or, and alternatively, buy the ticket and say, well, I've bought the ticket so that together and they're bought and you don't have to worry about it. And you can buy me the food on the day. And then you just forget to let them buy you the food on the day. It's probably there's probably going to be someone annoyed with me for that advice, but that's what I would do. Believe it or not, I have experience sometimes, I have to say I have sort of a different sort of experience in that, and that sometimes I know there are students who are on courses who are far poorer even than I am, and we go on field trips, and they've come on the field trip, and it's a full day, especially if we go down to Portsmouth or something like that, and I watch them having a sort of Coke and a bag of crisps for lunch. And I've always make sure I know all their. One of the things I always ask them is all their dietary needs and da 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 da. One of the random things I usually get from students is what their favourite food is, and I have been known to drop trays and go, I ordered too much. Here you go. Because I don't want my students collapsing on me while I'm, especially when they're the ones who are likely to start climbing rigging. If they collapse while they're up in the rigging because of lack of energy, that's really problematic. It's bad enough trying to get them down, as long as they don't collapse. But no, it's a case of sometimes better to ask forgiveness than permission. Dope Squad. Invite them over for a week around Tankfest. Tell them you've organised a surprise. Don't tell them the surprise is Tankfest. There are also other nice bits of scenery. There are also nice bits of scenery in around near Bovington to show someone if you're making a trip. Oh, there is. There's lots of it. And the Jurassic Coast isn't that far from there, if you don't mind driving. Come, that works as we shared food when on scout camp. I buy it, she will steal it, and I'll steal hers. So that works. That's good. Rowan Cash, was all that free soda what had them rampaging on HMS Warrior? Who knows? Honestly, seriously, I love my students, but it's almost, I can predict it with unfailing accuracy, almost exactly which groups will be up there. There will be two groups of students who end up climbing. There'll be the quiet ones who are really interested and want to get the experience, and there'll be the daredevils. And the ones in between on that spectrum won't do it, but the ones who are at the extreme ends of that spectrum will do it. Go on, Collins. Is there a tank fest this year? Might well be. Colin, thank you. Just luck. If you see someone get tripped up by a girl, it's me. We trip each other as a joke from our memory. Peter Dawson, nice. So you like to quote a US Admiral, Grace Hopper. Grace Hopper has a good few quotes. And the quiet ones actually listened how to climb down. Yes, they usually are the ones I can rely on to climb down. It's always fun. Well, no. And HMS Diamond Rock. I think there should be more. I think, honestly, if there is anything crying out for a movie to be made, the story of the the story of HMS Diamond Rock, it could be an absolutely amazing Age of Sail movie. It could be. Look it up. Look at the history and just think of the movie you could make about it. A small fort with free cannon facing down the entire might of the combined fleet for days. Carmen, what's the weirdest place you found a student on HMS Belfast? One got stuck at the bottom of the ladder in the magazine, in the forward magazine. Yeah. I had to get them out. Dove Squad, are you saying that because you want to be a historical consultant on film? No! Kate Jameson is the one who won a historical consult on that film. Kate Jameson would love that film. Kate Jameson would probably want to star in that film, but we'll leave that to one side. She could star in it. And so she could go full hornblower moment in it. So, and again, you couldn't have a bigger difference. You have the stone cold professional slash, I'm not sure what you call Cochrane, really, innovator, improviser, versus, well, Enough, who frankly shouldn't have this. Enough is just not shouldn't be there. Sure, I might or might not have snuck around to one of the closed areas on our, when I visited her, because they left the doors to one of the 5-inch mounts open. Cool. Rankash, I remember freaking out at the guide on HMS Erebus when I asked how many calibers the gun was, then had to explain I did not mean what caliber. Wife got very bored. You are very lucky you are still alive. Dan Freeman, how many students can you fit in a Type 21-inch torpedo? One, if they're small. What can I say? The average student doesn't squish down as much as they used to. Carl Harmon, any for you museum ships in Oslo you know of? Not from memory. There are a few, I think, but I can't remember their names. That's the problem, that squad. How attached are you an idea of them being in one piece in there, are you? Yeah. But, you know, I wouldn't want to put a student in a torpedo tube. The health and safety forms would be a nightmare. There is a YouTube video titled Climbing Down Torpedo Tube. Now, World War I Sons have 450mm tubes instead of 533mm USN or Iron tubes now. Carhaman, okay, I'll have to look into it. I've been informed when I visit her, we are going on a museum binge. Ooh, you will have fun. There are some very good museums in Oslo. There is lots of good stuff in there. There's lots of good stuff in Norway. If you can get it, Narvik is a wonderful place to wander around. It is absolutely beautiful. It's a very picturesque place to fight a battle, and let alone 3 in a row. Battleship New Jersey did a crawl through a 16-inch gun barrel. How small a person did they get to do it? Because, don't take this the wrong way. This is roughly 12 inches, right? And I am more than 12 inches. I'm roughly 16 inches across. So yes, a 21-inch torpedo, theoretically, you can fit in it. But in practice, it's a very tight space, and they're not as squishy as they used to be. They like headroom. Right. Now, I'm going to go get some tea at 9 o'clock, which is 3 minutes away. So I'm going to say any last questions before I go. And thank you, everyone, for joining me. It's been a great pleasure to chat to you all this evening. And I hope you've enjoyed learning about Guadeloupe in 1810. I'm sorry it's been turned into a two-parter. It really wasn't supposed to. That's good. It was the curator. He's not that small. That's slightly worrying. That's good. I mean, one thing with fitting the students in torpedo is that there's a very easy way to get them out again. Again, the health and safety forms. The idea of doing it's quite fun. The forms, the paperwork, that's what puts you off. It's terrible, terrible. Take care, DGB40. Take care, Dope Squad, and John Shea, and Dan Freeman. Thank you, Sean Mack. Take care, Kahedron. Oh, hail the Catalina. Kingsroot, take care. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Carl Harmon and Roland Cash. Thank you, Albazaski. Thank you, Nordic Wolf. Thank you, and Captain Seawolf. Thank you, Carl Vegaswet. Thank you. I need help in Hungarian ship's name production. Drop a line on Discord. Oh, that will be coming your way. You've got me into this. You're going to have to help me with the pronunciations. That is coming your way. Also, I'm hunting good sources in journal articles as I normally am on those ones. Dirt Squad, it wasn't a foreseeable event. Unfortunately, I've got engineering students. It's always a foreseeable event. Take care, everyone. Thank you, and have a nice evening. Lucas Ash, thank you. And thank you, Dirt Squad and Greg Salsky. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone. Take care.